All right, let's talk Texas Longhorns. Look, this is one of, if not the best team in football as we get closer to the 2025 regular season. Look, we're almost at training camp. Football is almost finally back, and as good as the Longhorns are and have been, they've been kind of sliding under the radar, which is a little bizarre. I mean, it's Texas, for God's sake, but maybe that'll change as they continue to get massive win after massive win, talking about the future, big-time recruiting news, and what it means for the present. They're all commingled together. It's a great sign for you Texas fans. We'll get to this latest report in just one second, but first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, this Texas Longhorns program under head coach Steve Sarkisian, look, they've been crushing it going back years now, right? They went into the SEC last season, took it by storm. They're in a great position going forward. I think we look at this program kind of a year or two ahead of schedule from what people expected in the SEC. They're the clear favorite by polling and by sort of voting analysis to win the national title this year. A lot of buzz around Arch Manning, a lot of great stuff for Texas, but the future looks good as well. We'll pull up this recent report right here to highlight exactly what we're talking about. This is courtesy of the great Hayes Faucet. Give him a follow on Twitter or X. He's got all kinds of great recruiting news. He says, breaking, elite 2026 running back Derek Cooper has committed to Texas. He tells me for @Rivals, the 6'2", 210-pound running back from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, chose the Longhorns over Miami and Georgia. Getting a kid right out of the state of Florida and getting him away from Georgia, big win there. He's ranked as the number 2 running back in the 2026 class. Terry Black's on my way. All right, just a quick little aside here. 6'2", 210 pound. This guy's like 16 years old. This is bonkers. Good Lord. Crazy stuff. I mean, he's going to be a freak in nature. He's going to do a lot of great things at the collegiate level. But it's not just this move. Now, the Cooper edition is a big win for the 2026 class. Texas, as you Longhorns fans probably are very well aware of, has been absolutely crushing it. Let's go to Hayes Faucet. Listen to him summarize all this stuff. He posted later that the Texas Longhorns are building one of the best classes in 2026, and it only gets better. They currently have the number 1 quarterback in Bell, the number 1 linebacker in Atkinson. That dropped a little bit ways ago. It's pretty cool. Number 1 defensive lineman, J.J. Johnson, Derek Cooper, we covered, and the number 3 edge and Richard Wesley, and there's more guys, of course. There's more than those guys listed on the class. They've been absolutely dominating across the board, and this Texas program has shown itself to be a recruiting force. Traditionally, it's been elevated under Steve Sarkisian, right? This is what they do down in Austin. They've done it at a phenomenal level. But let's take a step back and understand what it means for the present, right? Because obviously, like I said a second ago, this season is almost here. And when you look at recruiting for the future, one of the things that can happen is it can be indications of how good you are today. Because recruits and recruiting and assistant coaches and high school coaches, they can look at how great a program is now in 2025 and say, oh my goodness, they're going to be great. I want to jump on the bandwagon now. There's a weird reality where recruiting success, well, it's also a leading indicator, right? You win in 2028 because of the recruits you won in 2025, but the recruits you win in 2025, the quality of them tell you how good you are in 2025. In Texas, folks, they're so good, they're outclassing their competition. So we came up with a model here at Saturday Morning Inspection, trying to come up with the best 12 teams, right, to use the final 12 to make the college football playoff. In fact, let's pull up our first graphic right here, looking at analytics, the final 12 predictor. And there's a lot of stuff on the screen here. And you can see this is just based on our model. Our scoring's on the left side of the screen. And basically what we do here is we factor in ESPN's Football Power Index to scale how good you are roster-wise today. We look at the average quality of recruiting that you brought in 2025. So we say, okay, you ended the season based on FPI, at this level. What recruits did you bring in, right? We'll bump that up. And what transfers did you bring in? We'll bump that up as well. And we kind of scale it all and throw it all together. And this is what our model comes up with. And you can see right there on the far left, the best program that cleared away is Texas, right? You can see there's basically kind of like 4 tiers. If you go to the far right, there's sort of like the Tennessee, USC, Clemson, saying like, yeah, they're good, but they're not real contenders. Then you get into Penn State, Miami, LSU, A&M, where you're like, yeah, they're good, right? They're good teams. We expect them to be good, but they're not national title good, right? They borderline top 10. They may fall out top 15, top 20 if injuries happen. And then in the third tier, you've got like good teams that could make a real run. This is Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, and Georgia, right? And then there's one team that's in a tier above everybody else, and that's Texas, right? And again, this is not factoring in 2026, right? Keep that in mind. This is just based on those 3 data points I mentioned earlier. Football Power Index, how they finished the season, where they were last year, where their roster is coming into training camp, plus recruiting effects, plus transfer effects. And Texas is leaps and bounds ahead. They're in a whole nother tier. And I think that's what this graphic really shows to you guys here is how good Texas is and how far they've separated themselves from the pack. They're the only team in that elite championship tier. I mean, this is pretty crazy stuff for you guys looking at it on your screen. But one of the things we also wanted to do is we wanted to remove transfers from it as well, because it kind of shows a little bit what I'm talking about recruiting health. And if you remove transfers from it, folks, exact same thing, right? No change. Texas is still leaps and bounds a bit above everybody else. You see a little shifting in some other areas. Much of it remains the same because transfers really don't have that much of an effect outside of, a transcendent Ohio State Joe Burrow to LSU from like 2019 era. Like you're not going to get him. 2018, I think, is when he actually transferred sometime around that. You're not going to get just like a massive, just seismic shift in performance, which makes sense. So again, it doesn't matter which metric you use, what data you use. Texas is significantly better than their entire competition. And this is what really should stick out. No one is talking about how far and above today analytically Texas is than its peers. There are people in the media, there are talking heads, whether they be on social media, YouTube, ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever, saying Texas is the favorite, and it's true. But I don't think people understand how far ahead they are from a just roster perspective, analytically unbiased today to the rest of the competition. This is why you get the recruiting news. Let me flip back to that for a second. You get this stuff here. You get this stuff here, there we go, because you are really good today. That's how it works. You get quality elite recruits today because of how good you are today, and then that leads to future success. Saban proved that in Alabama. Sarkisian is showing that at Texas. All right, Longhorns fans, we got a few more things to talk about, but first I want to hear from you guys. We're talking about recruits, right? But we're also talking about freshmen coming into this class. So give us the one freshman in the 2025 class that you expect to have an immediate impact, day one impact for Texas, a guy who will show up day one and do a lot of great things. Give us that guy, that day one star from the freshman class. Put them in the comment section below. Really want to hear from you guys. But let's talk more about Texas here. I'm going to go back to this graphic here to just kind of highlight analytically where Texas is. And you can see, working again to the right of Texas, you see Georgia, a team that obviously had Texas's number a little bit last year in a lot of ways, significantly below, right? You can see Oregon, one of the best teams. They were undefeated last year, great offseason, still significantly below. Alabama, give Kalen DeBoer some credit. He's kind of brought them back from a disappointing finish last season based on some strong recruiting. They're in a good spot. Ohio State, Notre Dame made the national championship game. They're all still well below Texas, right? No one is in the same sphere. No one's even close to the same level as the University of Texas. And I think this is why Steve Sarkisian is quickly emerging, even though he doesn't get the press, in my opinion, as the best coach in college football. We know Lincoln Riley at USC with what he did with Caleb Williams and, of course, quarterbacks at Oklahoma is sort of like the offensive guru. Dan Lanning at Oregon's done a great job. Kirby Smart at Georgia, absolutely phenomenal. These are phenomenal coaches. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, what he's done to elevate Notre Dame after Kelly left and went to LSU, great work, right? The other guy, and that's another point I'll make, the guys on this chart here that you see, these are not like bad programs, right? These are good schools, best programs. We're talking top 8, top 5, top 12 schools in the entire country. These are elite blue blood kind of stuff. Texas is just better. Steve Sarkisian is just better. He's lapping them. We look at what happened with Nick Saban for so many years, and when he left, we kind of just tried to figure out, okay, who is going to be the replacement? And it naturally fell to Kirby Smart, back-to-back national titles. Makes sense, right? Was how long was Harbaugh going to stay at Michigan? Ohio State was going to be good. Was it going to be Lincoln Riley? Dan Lanning out west? Are we going to see something there, right? We kind of looked for all these things, but the answer was right in front of us the entire time, right? It was Steve Sarkisian, the guy that had kind of the Nick Saban pseudo-career arc, right? Spent time in the NFL, worked under great assistants, had some ups, had some downs, figured some things out, right? Sarkisian has that sort of Saban, Belichick kind of mindset, and he brings it in. He is not this big talker. He doesn't win social media. You guys notice that? That's one of the things I like about him is that he doesn't go out there and try and get the clicks and the Instagram views and the stuff. You don't see him on very many funny videos of doing things with recruits or things like that. He's a football guy. I mean, he comes from that mindset. X's and O's, offensive coordinator, evaluate players, develop players, scheme up players. That's what he is. And folks, let me tell you something. When it comes to playoff football, that's what matters, right? Well, I'll say two things matter. Elite quarterback play, number one. Love you, Quinn Ewers, but we expect more out of the quarterback position. Good quarterback just wasn't quite good enough where it mattered most to push them over the top. Number two, and a lot of that's game management, by the way, avoiding turnovers, converting third downs. That's what Will Howard at Ohio State did last year, by the way. People kind of sleep on that. But number two is scheming. It's strategy. Look at the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, right? Look at what happened with the Brady-Belichick dynasty. It was great quarterbacks that could manage the game and make special plays simultaneously, paired with great strategy. The Texas Longhorns have the strategy. They have the incredible roster. Now we've got a playmaking quarterback, and I think Arch Manning, if all reports indicate this to be true, I think it will be more effective game managing than Quinn Ewers. And look, I'm not saying Ewers was bad, right? I think Ewers was very, very good. I just think Arch Manning could potentially be better, and I think he could have been better in those big moments, right? Obviously, that big 4th and 13 in the playoff, big moment, understand that. But in those absolutely massive, Final Four kind of games, those kind of moments. He didn't quite make the plays when he had a chance to in those situations, and that's why they lost those games. We're being totally honest. Great competition. He didn't rise to the occasion. We'll see what happens with Arch Manning, but based on reports and based on what Sark can do and bring to the table, I think he's perfectly suited to do just that. So as we get closer to the season, guys, I think one thing to focus on is we're going to see a lot of reports, especially out of the Alabamas of the world, out of the LSUs of the world. The Florida Gators, they're doing some good things. The South Carolina Gamecocks, they got Lenore Sellers, Kirby Smart, Georgia, right? We're going to hear a lot of talk there. Tennessee Heupel. We're going to hear a lot of conversations with those guys throughout the SEC about the good things they're doing through in training camp, how excitement there is, the buzz, the energy, all that kind of stuff. And it's going to come to a head when Florida State plays Alabama week 1 of the season, right? But let's put that aside and look at the greatness of Texas. Look at the talent level of Texas. Look at the greatness of Sarkisian. Look at their phenomenal job in recruiting, their great transfer stuff. Across the board, they are A++. And I think in a weird way, we're sleeping on that. We're falling victim to the shiny new toy fallacy in college football when Texas has been super effective and kind of, in a weird way, a little bit boring. But guess what? A little bit boring, that wins national titles, and that's why, based on the data, Texas is perfectly suited to do just that. And I think when it's all said and done, they will hoist the trophy at the end of the season.